Officer Tyler Wood was 11 months into his training when he and his supervising officer, Sergeant Brian Dunlap, responded to a call in Loveland, Colorado that had been classified as domestic violence. What the classification did not convey, and what the body cam footage would later make plain to several million people, was that the dispute in question involved a 14-year-old girl. A unicorn keychain, a lanyard, an elephant charm, a bike lock key, and a bungee cord that belonged to her father. The girl's name was not released. The items she had come to retrieve belonged to her. The boy she had come to retrieve them from was 18 years old, had been in a relationship with her for 7 months. And when officers arrived at his address and asked whether he wanted to press charges against the girl who had come to collect her belongings, he said no. Before we continue, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city, your country in the comments below. We genuinely love knowing where this community is. People are tuning in to Black Legacy from Lagos to London, from Atlanta to Auckland, from Karachi to Kansas City, and every single one of you is part of why these stories don't stay quiet. If you believe that a 14-year-old girl retrieving her belongings after a breakup deserves to be treated with basic human dignity, and that a father stepping off his own porch to grab his dog while his daughter is being taken to the ground in front of him deserves something better than a taser and a pair of handcuffs, hit that like button and subscribe. Because we are Black Legacy, we don't speculate, we don't exaggerate. We take the documented, recorded, body cam captured facts and we lay them out completely, clearly, and without apology. Stay with this story, every detail matters. Her name, for the purposes of this account, is the daughter. She was 14 years old. She had been in a relationship with a boy who was 18, 4 years older, and when that relationship ended, she went back to collect what was hers. A unicorn keychain, a lanyard. An elephant charm she had noticed was missing only after she had already walked home the first time, which was why she went back. A bike lock key, a bungee cord that belonged to her father. These were the items, this was the disagreement. She had returned to his address more than once that afternoon, because each time she left, she realized something had not been given back. And she was the kind of person who was going to keep coming back until everything that was hers had been fully accounted for. That quality, the refusal to leave without what she came for, is worth holding on to for the rest of this story. Her father's name was John. He was at home that Wednesday afternoon. He had 2 dogs. He had bad hands, the kind of bad that comes from 2 surgeries on one hand. The kind that costs you something every time you use them, and that documents itself in medical records, and in the careful way a person has learned to reach for things. His record with the Loveland Police Department was exactly what he would later say it was on the footage, non-existent. He had no history of violence. He had no reason to expect that the next hour of his life was going to end with him face down on the concrete in front of his own house with taser wires in his body and an obstruction charge on his name. Officers Dunlap and Wood arrived and made contact with John first. Dunlap introduced himself and explained that Wood was a trainee responding under his supervision. Wood had completed 11 months of the 18-month training program required before an officer could respond to calls independently. The conversation at the door was calm. John was cooperative from the first moment of contact. He directed them to his daughter. She came outside and spoke to Officer Wood in the measured, slightly exasperated way of a teenager explaining something that seems obvious to her and is not yet obvious to the person she is explaining it to. She told him about the unicorn keychain. She told him about the lanyard. She told him about the elephant charm and why she had gone back for it after she thought she was done. She told him about the bungee cord. And she told him what the boy had said to her when she asked about it, that she should extract the payment from a part of her body not anatomically designed for storage. She was 14 years old. She explained all of it clearly and without drama. The way a person explains something when they know they are in the right and are simply waiting for that to become apparent to everyone else in the room. The officers had their classification before they pulled up. Domestic violence. The boy was 18. The girl was 14. They had been in a relationship. Under the definitions available to the dispatcher, the classification was technically applicable. What it could not capture what no two-word classification can capture, was that the alleged victim had already declined to press charges, that the items in dispute were a keychain and a lanyard, and that what was happening on that particular Wednesday was a teenage disagreement over personal property that had been resolved, to the extent it was ever going to be resolved, before the patrol vehicle turned onto the street. The classification had done its work. It had framed what the officers expected to find before they found it. And when the actual human situation in front of them did not match the frame, the response was not to update the frame. What happened next was captured on body cam footage from multiple officers and on the phones of at least 2 people present on the street. The footage shows the daughter being told she was under arrest. It shows her moving toward the door of her own home, not aggressively, not with any indication of intent to flee. The way a person moves when they have been told something that does not compute and whose immediate instinct is to be inside rather than outside. It shows officers grabbing her. It shows John coming through the front door, moving not toward the officers but toward his dog, a Jack Russell Terrier that had come outside, and that John did not want anywhere near the situation that was escalating in front of him in a direction he did not yet fully understand. His voice when he spoke was not the voice of someone threatening anyone. It was the voice of a man looking at his 14-year-old daughter being held on the steps of his own home, trying to explain to the officers holding her that she was 14 years old, and trying at the same time to reach a small dog before the dog made everything worse. He was pushed. He said he was going for the dog. He was pushed again. He said he was not threatening anyone. He said he was not a risk. The dog was on the stairs. John had the dog, this small animal he had come outside to secure, held in the hands that had already been through 2 surgeries. He turned. A taser was deployed. He fell. He was told to get on his stomach. He complied immediately. He was told not to move. He said he would not move. He did not move. His daughter was on the concrete. She was screaming, not the screaming that requires force to manage. The screaming of a 14-year-old girl watching her father get tased in the front yard of their home on a Wednesday afternoon. And John, face down on the ground, taser wires in his body, completely compliant, asked someone, anyone, to please put his dog inside before something happened to it. One of the officers eventually did take the dog inside. What did not happen at any point during this entire sequence from the moment the vehicle pulled up to the moment John was placed in the patrol car was de-escalation. Not one attempt. Not one moment in which anyone looked at a 14-year-old retrieving an elephant charm from a breakup and a father reaching for a Jack Russell Terrier and said, "Wait. What is actually happening here? Is this proportionate to what we are dealing with?" What was happening instead was an 11-month trainee and his supervising officer taking a domestic violence classification and managing everything they encountered into it. The girl, the father. The dog, the front yard, all of it, until a man with clean hands and a clean record was on the ground in front of his own home in handcuffs. And then an officer stepped on him. John mentioned this, he said it clearly. The officer's response, captured on body cam, preserved for the several million people who would eventually watch it without requiring anyone to tell them what they were looking at. Get over yourself. John was arrested on charges of obstructing and resisting. The footage captured him at every point behaving as a man who was frightened and frustrated and trying to protect 2 things at once, neither of which was himself. It captured him asking to speak to the chief. It captured an officer telling him he could speak to them all, and then adding in the same breath that he was not going to listen to what John had to say. The footage ran the entire time, all of it. And the people who would later watch it were not going to need context or explanation. They were going to see exactly what was there. There is a moment in the footage captured after John has been placed in the patrol car, and the officers have gathered to debrief. One of them mentions a bystander, a witness who had been present on the street, who had no relationship to either party, no stake in the outcome, who had simply been there and seen what happened. This witness had been asked whether they would give a statement supporting the department's account of events. They would not. The officer relaying this information to the group describes what the witness had said, that John had been trying to restrain his dog when the officer went crazy on him. The officer went crazy on him. That was the independent, unprompted assessment of a neutral witness who had watched everything unfold in real time from the outside. The officer receiving this information responds with 2 words, "Oh, good," and moves on to the logistics of transporting John to the station. Nobody addresses the witness statement. Nobody says, "If someone standing on that street described it that way, we need to talk about that." The debrief continues. This moment, not the taser, not the get over yourself, not the officer stepping on a man on the ground. This moment tells you more about the culture operating in that department on that afternoon than anything else in the footage. Because it is not cruelty. It is quieter than cruelty. It is an independent eyewitness account of excessive force being acknowledged with 2 words and set aside without a single follow-up question. Oh, good. That is what impunity looks like when it has become so normalized that it does not register as something worth slowing down for. The family filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the officers involved and the city of Loveland. The complaint cited 42 U.S. Code Section 1983, the federal statute passed in 1871, in the years after the Civil War, specifically to give individuals a legal remedy when the people sworn to protect their rights violated them instead. The fact that a law written in 1871 remains the primary available tool for families in this situation is its own documentation of a history that has not finished. The complaint cited the 4th Amendment and its prohibition on unreasonable seizure. A 14-year-old girl moving toward her own front door, a father reaching for his dog. The question under the 4th Amendment is always the same. Was this proportionate? Were these actions reasonable given the actual facts of the actual situation? The complaint cited Graham versus Connor, the 1989 Supreme Court ruling that established the governing standard for excessive force claims in the United States, that courts must evaluate force against the severity of the alleged crime, whether the suspect posed an immediate threat, and whether the suspect was actively resisting. The alleged crime was retrieving a unicorn keychain. The immediate threat was a man saying he was going for his dog. The resisting was a man on the ground saying he would not move and not moving. These were the facts. Graham versus Connor asks whether the force was reasonable against those specific facts. The lawsuit asks the same question. The city of Loveland released the body cam footage publicly after the suit was filed in 2022 and announced that an independent review would be conducted. As of the latest available information, there has been no reported settlement. There has been no reported disciplinary action against the named officers. There has been no major policy change publicly attributed to this incident. The case remains ongoing. 2 words that contain within them the entire distance between what accountability is supposed to look like and what it actually produces when the institution responsible for providing that. Accountability is the same institution whose conduct is being reviewed. When the people who are meant to determine whether something went wrong are the people who bear the consequences of that determination. Ongoing. The case remains ongoing. John had said on the footage, "Look at my record." He had said it more than once, on the ground, in the patrol car. With his wrists in cuffs and his daughter screaming, and his dog being walked back through his own front door by the officer whose partner had just deployed a taser into his body over a classification that the alleged victim had declined to pursue. He said it because he needed the people standing over him to understand that his full life was relevant, that the complete account of who he was and how he had lived mattered to how this moment should be interpreted. He was saying, "I am not what this looks like to you right now. I am more than this afternoon. My record is the evidence. Look at it." The officers did not look at his record. They had their frame. They had their classification. And John's record, his history, his 2 surgeries, his clean years, his Wednesday morning before that Wednesday afternoon, none of it fit inside domestic violence. And so none of it was accounted for. The lawsuit is still open. The footage still runs. The daughter went back for her elephant charm because it was hers and she was not going to leave without it. She was the kind of person who was going to keep coming back until the accounting was complete. If this story stayed with you, and it should, share it with someone who needs to hear it. With someone who doesn't think this happens. With someone who needs the full account. The families who ask for nothing more than basic dignity in front of their own homes deserve to know that when it is taken from them, the story does not stay quiet. Subscribe to Black Legacy. Drop your city in the comments. Hit that like button. We are not done telling the truth. We will be here until the accounting is complete.